Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Just checking that you can all hear me. If you can hear me well, can you please give me a thumbs up in the chat box, please? So I'm still waiting for everybody else to join us, and I'm also still waiting for um, everybody to give me a thumbs up if they can hear me well, just checking that everything is in place. Okay, hold on. Here we go. All right, so now you can type in the chat box.
Hi, Hend.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. All right, so let us start. This is Hind with you today and Nadia. And we're going to be addressing today's topic, maximizing speaking in the EFL classroom. And we're going to be looking at the lexical approach in specific and a little bit more. So before we start, just set some rules. So if if you have questions, you can type them in the chat box. If you want to answer some of the questions, I will be specifying how to share your answers. Mostly it's going to be in the chat box. And let's begin and share our experiences together. Right, so here we go. So today, here are our objectives for the session. We're going to be looking at why students shy away from speaking. We're going to look at methods to encourage speaking in the classroom. And we're going to be reviewing the lexical approach and looking at some practical games that we can use in our classes. So let's begin. So let's start with this little exercise. So you don't unmute yourself for this, but I would like you to try and read the two sentences that you have in front of you out loud. So not in your head, but out loud. And just give it a try. All right. And I don't know if you can identify the languages that are written in front of us. If you can identify which languages they are, you could type it up in the chat box. So let me know if you can recognize the language. Okay. So French. All right. Other guesses that we have? Yeah, one of them is Spanish. Yeah. And then the one at the bottom. All right. So the one at the bottom is actually Irish. And I don't know if any of our participants speak these languages here, but this brings us to the following question. How confident were you saying the words? So would you have been confident reading them in front of a group, maybe? And if the sentences were written in your own language, would you be more comfortable Or how would you feel? How does that, like, how does not knowing a language or not being confident in speaking a language affect us? So reflect for a minute, and maybe let's have some of you share their answers. So if you could just raise your hand. The chat box, I actually know the chat box is active. Oh, there it is. See, there we go. I'm getting answers on it now.
Yes,
Okay.
I just activated it. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you, Nadia. All right. Thank you. All right. So would anybody like to share their experience answering some of the questions that we have here on this slide? All right. So Heba, would you like to share the experience? How did you find it? Okay, you need to unmute yourself.
Participants can't unmute.
I
They
asked
type in the chat.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Well, let's.
Would you like me to make them able to unmute?
Actually, it's okay. So maybe let's have the answers in the chat box better, right, Nadia?
Yes, you let me know if you need me to. I can make it happen.
No, then let's just stick to the chat box then. Okay,
Okay.
so I am actually already getting some answers in the chat box. So some of you are saying that it felt difficult, you didn't feel confident at all. Some of you are saying that it's like reading a new language you have no idea about. Someone who speaks Spanish said they were confident reading the first statement. So this gives us just baffled. That's a good one. So this gives us a sense of what our students feel when they actually try to speak or use a language that is foreign to them. And it's always a good thing to go back and try and reflect on how we feel. Sometimes we tend to forget how it feels because we're so confident using it, we don't relate to how our students feel. All right, so moving on to the reasons that our students feel reluctant to speak in class. So actually, we've already said that it could be because of lack of confidence. But what else? Even sometimes ones who have the capacity to speak are timid. So where does that come from? Can you please share your answers in the chat box? Probably, so I'm guessing maybe it's a type of personality. They're an introvert, possible. Lack of vocab, scared of judgment, peer pressure, not confident, shy, personality, old habits, so old experiences, definitely. Okay, feeling that they would be stigmatized if they make any mistakes, fear. Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so they are more or less the same reasons coming up from all of us here, that it boils down to the following. So speaking is a social skill. It requires social skills. And like you said, we have personality types. Sometimes we are not confident in our social skills, or we're just timid by nature. So it could boil down to that. It could be a fear of speaking in general, whether they are scared of being judged or whether they are overthinking it. They could have a lack of practice opportunities. So it's not something they often do. So therefore, that's something unfamiliar, and therefore they're not comfortable enough to do it. Overthinking, whether it be about peer pressure or judgment, or maybe overthinking the grammar, sometimes overthinking the vocab, wanting to choose a very specific word and focusing on that more than focusing on the message they're trying to get through. Comparisons, sometimes they might be intimidated by another student who is maybe better than them in this skill in specific, or they're just comparing and they feel lack of confidence. Overemphasis in on written communication in our classrooms, and that is something that we all and most of our educational systems actually focus on. So to go against that all of a sudden also is not easy. And perceived high expectations. If they expect that, if the teacher is expecting them to get everything right, or maybe their parents expect them to get everything right, they would probably not want to go there and try to avoid it as much as they can. So this brings us to the question of today's webinar. So how can we maximize speaking in the classroom? How do we do that? So before I share with you some of the ideas that we're going to talk about in today's session, I'd like you to share some of your ideas in the chat box again. So how can we do this? What can we do? Absolutely. So avoiding criticism, praise, providing opportunity through role plays, working on their confidence, absolutely. Group work and pair work, so interaction patterns, very good. Starting with the simple familiar topics where they can actually speak about it, absolutely. So many great ideas. Taking turns, class practice, praising, a lot of praise coming in, which is actually really important. And also like starting with simple activities coming in a lot as well, which is also very important. Making it fun, absolutely. Pair work and group work is coming up a lot as well, so the interaction patterns. Positive feedback, so that goes with encouragement as well. All right, very good. So not correcting every single pronunciation mistake. So focusing on fluency sometimes rather than the pronunciation or the grammar, absolutely. Absolutely. So minimizing teacher talking time. So that is a very important one. Providing the opportunity. Excellent. All right. Brilliant, everyone. So let's see what we have here. So most of the ideas that you've mentioned, we're going to actually come up here. So basically, if you want to summarize them into 2 points, is providing adequate input and maximizing speaking opportunities. So like you said, we have to choose topics that they're familiar with, or maybe provide the input through a reading or a listening to scaffold towards the speaking activity. Now, maximizing speaking opportunities can happen in so many ways, like you guys just mentioned. Now, let's look at some of them. So creating a safe environment, like you said, having encouraging them, not criticizing, giving constructive feedback, all that is very important. Varying interaction patterns, so like you said, group work, pair work, trying to vary the interaction patterns and making sure that they actually talk to each other and not just to the teacher all the time. Eliciting more often, so how can we encourage them to participate and speak? We could simply use eliciting as a way of starting simple. So they don't have to string a long sentence or a paragraph about the topic. They could just simply answer some of the questions that we're using to elicit information. Varying speaking tasks and approaches. So looking into the approaches we're relying on to encourage speaking in the classroom is very important, and we'll look at that later on in today's session. As we said, focusing on fluency, so making sure that they are able to communicate what they're trying to say. The meaning here is standing out rather than the pronunciation or the grammar. Incorporating technology, of course, and gamifying. Speaking like you said as well, making it fun is very important. Now, we're going to focus on 3 of those today. We're going to look at eliciting and how we can work on that and how we can do it in different ways. We're going to look at varying approaches, and we're going to look at gamifying speaking. So let's start with the first one, eliciting. So let's give it a try here and see how we usually elicit in our classes. So let's imagine you're showing your students this picture in the classroom, and you want to elicit from them language, sentences, whatever it is. You want them to speak. This is your prompt, this picture. What would you do? What would you say? So again, in the chat box, share your answers, please. Okay, very good. So CCQs are coming up, describing the picture in their own words, absolutely. Ah, nice. So asking them to put themselves in the mouse's shoes. Very good. Okay, nice. Some of you are taking it into making it more personal for them. So asking them, do you like swimming, for example, given that the mouse is actually in water? Absolutely. So asking WH questions are coming up. So how do you think he feels? Do you like what can you see in the picture? What do you understand from the picture? Absolutely. Okay, and some creative questions as well. So is that food? Do you think the mouse is food? All right, so tapping into emotions, tapping into creativity, tapping into analysis. Very good. Very nice. All right. Brainstorming words, absolutely. So we can start with that. That's also a way of eliciting and a way of building towards speaking. All right, yeah, some of you have gone straight to write a simple story about the photo, but instead of writing, we could just ask them to narrate. So we could put them in pairs and narrate a story to work more on that, on the speaking. Very good. Oh, somebody mentioned, so Noor says, how can they help? So I'll ask them, how can you help this mouse? So that's also a good question where they have to be creative, and actually it will generate a lot of speaking in the classroom. Okay, very good. All right, so let's look at some of the methods that we could use when it comes to eliciting. So like you demonstrated in the chat box, there are many ways to elicit from our students. If we can categorize them into specific groups, what would they be? So for example, some of you used what can you see? How does it feel? How can you help? All of that. What category would that be if I want to categorize different ways of eliciting? Yes, absolutely. So asking questions is one way to elicit from the students, asking WH questions. Absolutely. Okay, so think of the other options that you gave me in for the picture. What other, okay, so yes, what other things, what other categories can we rely on in eliciting? So discussion, brainstorming, very good. Dialogue, role plays, absolutely. CCQs as well. So CCQs would still be with the questions category. Okay. Open-ended questions, description. All right, very good. Amazing. All right, so let's look at some of the ways that we can use to elicit in the classroom. So peer elicitation. So we are very used to eliciting from our students as teachers. We ask the questions all the time to get out the vocab or to get them to speak. One thing we can do for maximizing speaking in class is putting them into pairs and asking them to elicit from one another. So instead of me asking all the questions, they'll start asking one another and they'll come up with actually some very interesting questions and very creative. So that's one way of doing it. A guessing game. So some of you said we can ask a question of how did the mouse get there? What is going on? That is a guessing game. You can ask them to also play a guessing game like asking the mouse. So one of them can pretend to be the mouse, and some of them are going to guess things about the mouse and how they got there and ask them yes/no questions. And then the mouse can answer back and make it up as they go. But of course, like the person in the chair would have to be someone who has the skill to actually communicate and make it fun for everybody. Word maps, some of you mentioned this, though, building up towards the speaking activity, you could just simply ask them to create a word map related to the visual that they have in front of them, and they can expand the vocab furthermore. And then from the vocab, the word map that they came up with, they can start narrating some kind of story to one another. Open-ended questions, so you've mentioned that, all the WH questions that were coming up. Incomplete sentences, so if I feel that my students need prompting or need support, I could give them incomplete sentences, or I could just give them interesting or fun prompts to make it even more fun, or to, like you said, generate more creativity and more vocab within the classroom. And you can also rely on role playing. So like you said, role play is always a good opportunity for speaking. We can ask them, for example, to pretend to be someone who found the mouse in the water, or to be the mouse themselves. And they can come up with what the mouse would be saying, or if he saw a ship, what he would shout out to the ship, and so on. So all of these are ways of eliciting from our students vocab and sentences and encouraging speaking in the classroom. So that is one way of doing it. Now, let's move on to our next approach for maximizing speaking in the classroom, which is varying speaking approaches. Yeah, someone in the chat box is saying eliciting should meet all learning styles. So yeah, absolutely. And that's why we have so many different ways that we can rely on to elicit from the students. So you have the role plays for the kinesthetic, you can have also like the visuals that we had for the visual ones, and you can have the auditory. Like there is so much you can do with eliciting, absolutely. All right, so moving on to our next point, which is varying speaking approaches. We're going to look at different approaches that are suitable for speaking in the classroom. So before I share with you the approaches that generate more speech in the classroom, I'd like you to share your insights. So in the chat box again, share with me the approaches that you think generate more speaking in the classroom rather than others. All right, so I lost connection for a minute there. So just picking up from where I stopped to make sure we're all on the same page. So again, we're looking at approaches that are suitable for speaking in the classroom. So what kind of approaches, what kind of, like not activities, but we're looking at approaches, like for example, task-based learning. That's something that generates a lot of discussion in the classroom, therefore it generates more room for speaking. What else? Like, don't think, yeah, absolutely, here we go, we're getting there. Communicative approach, very good. All right, yes, absolutely. So again, think of approaches rather than activities. Absolutely. All right. So right, community-based, okay. Right, student-centered, absolutely. Okay, all right, so absolutely. Okay, so I'm getting more of like activity ideas than approaches. I'm getting some approaches, but mostly activity ideas. But a lot of you have mentioned the communicative, the inquiry-based, the yeah. So most of what has come up is the communicative approach, which makes absolute sense. So let me share with you the approaches that we have here. So someone said project-based learning, absolutely. So task-based learning is one of them. The communicative approach, absolutely, like you've mentioned. Content-based learning, project-based learning, lexical approach. So like you can see, any approach that is required to fulfill a task where the students have to communicate to actually build towards that generates a lot of space for discussion and therefore is very suitable for generating speaking opportunities in our classes. Now we're going to be reviewing the lexical approach in specific, so that's the one we're focusing on in today's session. So let's start with this. So looking at the following paragraphs, we have some parts in bold. So our first one is like been around. Take a minute, read through, and tell me what they have in common. Okay, so phrases are coming up. Okay, some of you are saying they're past events. Okay, brilliant. Someone says you cannot cut them into separate pieces. They come together. Someone says chunks. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Clusters is coming up as well. Collocations. Yeah. Very good. All right. Expressions, lexical chunks, idioms, content phrases. All right. Very good. Excellent. So you are right. They are all language chunks. And that is our key to our next question. What is the lexical approach? So again, in the chat box, share your definitions of what the lexical approach is. We just saw an example of it. Reflect on that if it's the first time you hear about it, and which I'm sure some of you already know. What is the lexical approach? In the chat box. Okay, all right. Very good. I'm seeing a lot of accurate definitions, mentioning some of the features as well. Something that keeps on coming up is the fact that it's about words mostly, absolutely, and fixed expressions. Excellent. Okay. So some of the phrases that came up is that it focuses on vocab, it is more about the meaning, it's more about the content, chunks came up, collocations came up. All right, so let me share with you the definition that I have here. Take a minute, read through it. It is very similar to what many of you have shared. So to recap, the lexical approach is basically, like you said, more about the words, more about the meaning rather than the grammar. And it's more about expressing the idea rather than the appropriacy of the pronunciation or the appropriacy of the structure of it. So it's like as if you're traveling to a different country and all you want to do is, ask where the bus station is. You don't need to know the structure of the sentence. You just need to know the chunk that you need to say to get that meaning across to whomever you're talking to. So that's basically, if you want to think of the lexical approach, that's basically one example we can think of. All right, so this brings us to the question, what are the features of the lexical approach? So when I'm teaching in class, what features am I addressing? What features am I thinking of while teaching in class? So again, in our chat box, share your answers. So already you can see some of you have written fluency. What else? Very good, easy to memorize, simplification, meaningful context, absolutely. Daily use, all right, very good, easy to understand. Functional language, all right, very good. Encouragement is coming up, encouraging them to speak. Okay, fluency is coming up quite a lot. Very good. Guessing the meaning out of the context. So making sure that it is context-based in general is an important feature. Okay, that's really good. Very good. All right, talking about like topics that are relevant to them. Okay, someone is saying that it's interesting because students don't like grammar structure or they find it difficult, and therefore this is a more convenient way to approach it. Absolutely. All right, excellent. So let me share. All right, let me share some of the features that we should be looking at when we use this approach in class. So focusing on lexical units, like you said, we're looking at collocations, at fixed phrases, so that is our core for building up the fluency in the speaking activities. focusing on vocabulary and meaning. So I'm more focused on the message I'm trying to get through, the vocab that I'm using, more than the structure, what kind of structure is going on in the sentence. It's also very important to look at the context and they actually get exposure. So for this to be a successful approach in my classroom, I have to make sure that I am giving my students enough exposure to these fixed phrases and collocations so that they come to them automatically when they need to express a certain idea, because they've seen them so many times. You know, like when you sometimes say something and you stop for a minute and you're like, hold on, that doesn't sound right. That sense of it doesn't sound right. This is not the right verb with this kind of action. That's where we want to get our students to. When they've been exposed to it so much, they know that these words go together, not necessarily because they've memorized them, but they've heard them so many times. They know that this word follows that word straight away. All right, let's look at some more. So I need to move this. All right, so collocations and fixed expressions. So that is usually the base. So if we are using any materials, we need to make sure that they cover that kind of wording so that our students have the exposure we were just talking about. And then again, like many of you have said, fluency over accuracy. So if my students are talking, they're expressing their ideas, I can understand what they're trying to communicate. There is no need for me to keep on stopping them and correcting their grammar because they are able to communicate what they're trying to say. So they are actually getting there fluent. All right, so if I want to use the lexical approach in my classroom in a practical way, what are some activities that I can actually use? So in our chat box again, share some ideas that build on this whole idea of collocations or fixed phrases. What kind of games? All right. So putting them in real situations. So role plays, absolutely. Story chain, classifying words. All right. But classifying, okay, if I'm going to focus on classifying the words by part of speech or function, that's going to take us a bit in another direction. But if I'm classifying them as, for example, I have a certain verb and I want to see like all of the words that could come after this kind of verb, then that would take me into the lexical approach. Board games, all right, matching, definitely matching is a big one when it comes to lexical approach. All right, a basket of words. So I'm guessing this is where you put like a lot of words in the basket and then you bring out whatever word and then you have to complete the phrase or complete the collocation. Possible, that's a nice one. Fly swatter game, absolutely, that's a fun one. So it's like the matching one, but instead of like doing it with cards, you bring in a fly swatter and then they can swat the word that completes the collocation, for example. They really enjoy that. Okay, bingo. All right. So you can actually use bingo in so many ways. You can create a grid where they have to play with the collocations and whoever finishes their grid actually wins the game. Absolutely. Singing them, that's very nice. Absolutely. So singing the collocations, making a song out of it. All right. Running and saying them. All right. Dice game. Yeah, so maybe you can put the verbs on different sides of the dice, roll it, and whatever comes up, you have to complete the collocation, or maybe just build on whatever comes. Like if you have a collocation, you can just use it a prompt and complete your speaking activity. So it's actually encouraging speaking as well. Puzzles, absolutely. Very good. All right, let me share some of the hunting game, right? So they're hunting maybe for the other part. You can also do one where they have to find, like each one has a paper and then they go up and then walk around to find each other. So each person has to find their other half to actually complete one another. And then they just have to go around and find their match, for example. It could also be a way of pairing students. So you can actually use collocations to pair students if you hand out these slips of paper. So each two who completes the collocation are a pair for whatever activity is coming up. So you can even plan them easily as a quick activity that serves your lesson and reviews the collocations quite quickly. All right, so let's look at some of the practical games that we can use in our classes. Right? So here we have our first one, where we can pair students together, and each student has a card like this one, and it has the beginning of a phrase or a collocation, and we are going to have two different cards, one for student A, one for student B. And they will read the whatever they have on their cards out to one another, and their partner will have to complete the collocation or complete the phrase. So let's try this one together. So live in, can you complete this one in the chat box? Okay, very nice. So we have live in peace, live in a big town, live downtown. But listen, remember, live in. Okay, so live in. Okay, so it's gonna be live downtown. Yes, absolutely. Live in an ivory tower. So many great ideas. Okay. I feel like the answer I'm going to show you now is going to be super boring compared to what you guys have written in the chat box. All right, so let me show you what I have here. Okay, very good. So I just have live in the house, but you guys came up with so many great ideas. All right, let's look at the next one. Get up on the wrong side. You guys are acing this. All right. Yeah. Okay, early. Early's coming up a lot. Late came up a couple of times. In a hurry. All right. So yeah, I had earlier in the morning. All right, let's do the next one. Start. Now start over, start running, start working. All right, very good. Nice, start dancing, start thinking. All right, you can start so many things, right? Start work. All right, next one, have. Yep. Have fun, have a nice day, have breakfast, have lunch, a good day. Very good. Okay, brilliant. So have breakfast. That's the one I have. And then you would have another card like this one. And of course, the students would have the answers, but also they can come up with other options like you guys just did. Like it's not just one correct answer. And that's the exposure we were talking about. Like they can come up with other answers and then exchange this kind of information. And that just kind of builds the vocab and the collocations that they can fall back on whenever they are trying to communicate something. All right, let's look at another activity. So here, you would give them a paragraph or some kind of story, and you will ask them to underline the lexical chunks that they can find. All right, and after they've done that, what could I do with this? Let's hear some of your ideas. So now I've exposed them to the language. I've made them identify it. What can I do next to bring in speaking opportunities or to practice this more? Okay, so someone says replace the words. Absolutely. Make a sentence using that whatever phrase or collocation. Okay, they can repeat them. Use them in a different context. Very good. So write up your own story using these collocations. Synonyms is a good way. Okay, very good. Excellent. Excellent. Now, remember, we're talking about speaking as well. So we would want them to use them in a speaking activity. So maybe they can start using them, like put them in a pot, and then whatever comes up for each student, they can say something about themselves using this collocation in specific, for example. Very good. Excellent. They can do also a chain story, but in a narrative, and then they can just complete the story as they go with these. Absolutely. All right, very good. One idea that I just put on the slide here is just to start by having them match these collocations. So yeah, someone just said a pairing game, and then we can ask them from there to build on it some kind of speaking activity. All right, very good. Okay, let's look at our next one. So what's another practical game idea that we can use is the odd one out. So let's try it together. So in the first line, you have 4 words. One of them does not go with the verb take. Which one is it? Which one is the odd one out? So take pills, take exercise, take time, take an operation. Which one? Yeah, I'm getting it is between 2 of the words. Yeah, but most of you are getting it right. So an operation is the one. Yes, very good. All right. Next one. Have an operation, a temperature, pills, coffee. Which one is it? All right. I'm starting to see it come up now. Very good. Yeah, it's pills. Very good. So that's another idea that you can use in the classroom for the lexical approach. It is a practical game. And then from there, of course, we would want to extend it into your speaking activities to provide opportunities. So remember, we said you have to provide speaking opportunities and provide adequate input. So this is the adequate input that we were talking about. And then from there, we can build a speaking activity with giving them the opportunity to practice. All right, now moving on to our last point of today's session. So focusing on gamifying speaking activities. So I'm sure a lot of us have used different games and different activities that are fun for our students to generate interest and motivate them to speak in the classroom. So we're going to actually look at a video now. And as we watch, I'd like you to take down note of some of we're not going to watch it all. I'll share with you the link in your chat box after we're done, because there are so many ideas that you can share, that you can actually use in the classroom, but we don't have time to watch it all. So we're only going to watch up till minute 5. And I would like you to come back with an activity or two, or a game or two that you would like to actually try out with your students in the classroom. So give me a minute to share the video with you. I will play it here for everyone to see. No, I'm still gonna play it. Hold on, give me a minute. Just need to make sure that. Okay, here we go. All right, let's go. Oh, no, okay. Oh, no. All right, hold on. I actually did share. Okay, wait. Let me share it once again. Yeah, I know. I don't have the box that says share sound for some reason. It doesn't show up in the options. Nadia, are you with
Can you
us?
send
Can
me
you
the
help?
link? Yes, can you send me the link? Just
Sure. Okay, I'll send it to you now. All right. Technology is not helping me right now. Just give me a minute. Thank you for
it's
being
okay.
patient.
What's the name of the video, Hend?
It's on the PowerPoint. It's on the notes in the PowerPoint, the one that I shared with you.
Got it.
So it's slide number 23.
Slide number 23.
Yeah,
I'm there. Found it.
brilliant. Thank you.
No.
Thank you so much. All right.
So open link. Are you able?
Learn anything,
Okay, can you
anywhere, at any
see?
time, for free. There are thousands of online courses taught by real-world.
Okay, are you able to see on here?
Yeah. Can everybody else see as well? Yeah, I can see it, Nadia. So we're going to
Okay.
play it up to minute 5. So again, to remind you guys, we are going to choose one activity we would like to try out with our students.
Okay, would you like to start at minute 5 or end at minute 5?
And at minute 5. Thank you.
Put the students into pairs and each pair with another group so that they are 4 together. The first pair
Are you able to see on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's working
of
well.
the topic, and the other pair has to discuss it with each other for 1 minute. You can change the amount of time depending on the level of the students. This is a great activity because you don't need to prepare anything and the learners pick the topics. Make sure to get feedback from your students. Ask them if they heard anything funny or interesting. It's worth doing this so students can see that their experience of an activity has value. Hobby experts. Each person has something that they're very good at. Let each student pick a hobby or skill that they are proud of and quickly write down a few notes how to become very good at that hobby. Then they have to explain to a partner step by step how to get good at that skill. Make sure that they include at least 5 steps and no sleeping or playing video games. When done, ask the students what their partner has taught them. Use phones. We have one of the best resources in the world at our fingertips. When I start class, I often ask my students to take out their phones and find a photo they have taken recently. Then they have to share the story of the photo in small groups. Social media like Instagram is blooming, and learners really want to share their lives with other people. Most are so happy to share something interesting or fun that happened in their very own lives, or just a pretty picture they took of something. It also makes it easier for them to explain what is going on in their lives. You can also encourage the rest of the group to ask them the 5 W's. When was it taken? Who is in the picture? Where? What were you doing? Why? Include these to make this a great activity for adults and advanced learners. Project-based learning, or PBL. Speaking of phones, since most people have internet on their phones, you can ask the students to do some projects together. Pair them up and tell them to present their findings to the class. They are news presenters and they have to find a news story that they will share with the class. But make sure they find the information from an English site. I've done the same thing when I was preparing students for a trip abroad. I asked them to plan a day in the city they were visiting. Their itinerary should include places to go, restaurants to eat at, and activities to do. And remember, push them to use English sources. Most Koreans use the exact same blogs, but we want to expose them to real content instead of translating. It could also be something simple like telling the class that we're going to have a day out. One group has to pick a movie. One group has to plan the transport. How are we going to get there? Another can find a restaurant that we'll eat at. The possibilities are endless. Find something in common. All humans want to form connections with other people. So there is nothing better than to find out what you have in common with a classmate. Challenge your students to have a conversation with a partner and find out what exactly they have in common. It could be that they went to the same vacation spot when they were younger, or they both have 2 sisters. It's even better if it's something exciting or interesting. Give them a couple of minutes to have a conversation, write it down, and then they can share it with the class. You might notice that I insist on getting feedback from the students after every activity. It's because I believe that at this level, you should always have an outcome or a resolution. 250 conversation starters. I found a wonderful list of conversation starters. It has 250 questions that you can ask someone to get a conversation started. I've put the link down below. Cut them out for conversations in class. Students sit in small groups, pick up the question and answer. Just a minute. Most students have an issue with fluency. They speak very slowly and there are often pauses in between their sentences. Just a minute is a great activity to help with fluency. Write down topics on your board. It could be topics that you're already doing in class or ones that you think of on your own. Make sure that there are more topics than you have students. Have students play rock, paper, scissors, or pick a number from a jar. The first student comes to the front, they pick a topic, and they have to talk about it non-stop for 1 minute. Make sure to emphasize that speed is the most important. You don't care if they make mistakes, but you want them to talk very quickly. Once they...
Is it
Yeah,
here?
thank you. Thank you, Nadia.
Welcome.
All right, so I'm going to share the link to this video with you so that you can continue to watch it for more ideas. But in the chat box, I'd like you to share one activity that you would actually like to try with your students. right, very nice. Right, of course, some of the activities we're going to want to adjust or adapt according to what's allowed in our classes, the age group that we're talking to, and all of that stuff. All right, yeah, some of you are mentioning that some of these activities are actually very useful and come in handy because they don't require much preparation, which is true. Okay, very good. Thank you so much for sharing. Nadia, if we can share the, oh yeah, there we go. So Nadia is sharing the link in the chat box for you to watch later on at your own time. So this brings us to the end of today's session, but there are a couple more things I would like to share with you before we go. So first things first, of course, many of you asked about the certificate. So certificate, here is how you can get your certificate for today's session. You're going to use a laptop, not a phone. You're going to make sure you have Adobe Reader, and then you are going to use this link, which the lovely Nadia is again going to share with you in the chat box. Then you're going to get the certificate where you can type your name, save it on your laptop, print it out if you would like. So you just follow the link from a laptop and write your name. Simple as that. Okay. Now, there are a couple of more interesting events and informative sessions that are coming up. So here are a couple of things that maybe you'd like to watch out for in December and January that are happening with us at the British Council. So we have different topics that are going to be discussed. So we have climate action in language education. We're going to share all the links for all of these topics with you. And we also have assessing learning. So that's also an interesting topic that we can attend. And then communication skills. So that goes as well with what we were talking about in skills today, in our speaking skills today. So that could be a nice topic to look into as well. And making time for research in the English classroom, which is very important, especially for more advanced students. So all of those links, again, we're going to share with you in the chat box, so you can follow them and see whichever topic interests you. And this is also something, if you haven't heard about yet, it's really actually going really well, and it's really informative and very useful. We have our community of practice groups where we have different special groups, special interest groups on WhatsApp, and we have a speaking club as well that happens on Zoom, but also had a WhatsApp session. So the sessions are actually held on WhatsApp. They are moderated through texting, which makes it very convenient for so many, super accessible. So again, we have two links, one link for the WhatsApp group and another link for our speaking club that we're going to open, speaking club 4 that we're going to open soon. We actually have already groups that are running for these special interests, but we're opening new groups because of the high demand. So we have a teaching primary, teaching secondary, teaching education, teacher education, teaching writing, teaching with technology. So if any of these interest you, follow the link and sign up for that as well. And we hold a session, we hold regular sessions every week, so it's ongoing. So again, Nadia is going to share with you the links in the chat box, and if you find any of them interesting, please sign up for that. And this brings us to the end of today. So thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you found it useful. And thank you, Nadia, for helping out.
You're welcome. So thank you so much, Hend. This was so cool. I just have
Thank
one
you.
thing to add. We would love to hear their feedback on the webinar, on the program as a whole. So I'll be pasting a link to get their opinions, a feedback form, and it would be great to help us run more of these events and more of these webinars in the future. So here's
Amazing.
the link
Yeah,
for
very
that.
important. Very important as well. Thank you, Nadia.
There you go. It is
Right,
in the
so
chat box right now.
brilliant. So I'll keep
Okay.
this running for a bit so that we can get the links, like you can get time to copy the links. And thank you so much. And if you have got your links, feel free to exit.
For Naufala, who's saying she can't edit the certificate, you need to be doing this on a laptop and you need to actually have Adobe. Once you do that, you'll be able to edit your name and then download the certificate into your computer. Like a walk in the park, don't worry. It's also great that we have 2 new groups that just recently opened, secondary teachers 2 and primary teachers 3, which I've already shared the links to, but I'll be sharing them again right now so that if anyone is interested, you can definitely join.
Okay, so thank you all for being with us today. Just one more thing before I end the session. So we have the Facebook group page that Nadia is going to share the link for in our chat box. The recording for the webinar will be posted there, and any future announcements about other webinars and other useful events that are happening are always announced there. So it's really, really important for you guys to join it, and you'll find it very useful as well. So thank you again, and I hope I'll see you again soon. And don't forget, there are another 2 webinars today. If you are registered for them, or if you haven't registered for them, you can register for those and attend them as well. They were shared on the group. You will find a link to them as well on the Facebook group. All right, thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.